Hi guys, welcome to another tutorial from Moo Out. Today we're going to be making a rock paper scissors game in Windows Form using C Sharp, and obviously we're going to do this inside of Visual Studio. So this is the completed project at the moment, just to go over the preview. So if I click on start, and yep, so at the moment the timer should be going down, and what the game should do is, if we haven't made a choice, it's going to tell us, make a choice. So we can choose between rock, paper and scissors from there. So let me just choose rock, and the CPU should randomly pick a option as well. So here I picked rock, the CPU picked scissor, and then says rock breaks scissor, player wins, and then I click OK. We can go on to the other round. So there's 3 rounds altogether, so whoever makes the most. So I haven't made a choice in this one, so it's asking me to do that again. So you have the option to win a round, lose a round, or to draw a round as well. So in this case, the CPU obviously won this round. Scissor cuts paper. So I click OK. So we are score 1-1 at this point. So I made the choice again. Okay, you also have the option to restart the game. So right now I win this round, so rock breaks scissor obviously. So I can go and pick, let's say for example scissor, and then let's say I win the game. Okay, so right now when you have won the game, you can click any buttons. After that it wouldn't make any difference, so you have to press restart, and then everything goes back to the way it was before. Okay, so you can make the choices again. Okay, paper covers rock. Alright, so we're going to be making a new project for this one, and I'll show you how to do this project step by step. Just before we start, the images I'm using for this game are already hosted on the Moo Out website, so it's under the tutorial for C Sharp. So this is a written style tutorial. The pictures that we're using are from this website, and you can also follow the tutorial here to make the game as well. But for now we're going to do a interactive video tutorial for you guys, so it's a lot easier to follow through. Alright, so I've downloaded the zip and I've extracted it. So always make sure that you extract the zip. I'm using WinRAR at the moment. You can also extract it with the Windows zip file as well. So you can easily go here and see we got the paper, the QQ, so that's the default question image, and then we got the rock and the scissors. Okay, so let's go and make a new project now. Visual Studio, so I'm gonna create a new project and just pick Windows Form from this side here, so it's a lot easier for me. Okay, so okay, now this is the blank project. I'm just going to move this one over here so it's out of the way. Alright then, so let's set up a few things that we are going to need for this. So we're going to need, first of all, we're going to need 3 buttons. So just 2, 3. So I'm just going to hold the control button and I'm just going to drag the button down. So that saves me from going in and dragging another button in there. So first one is rock. Second one is paper. And third one is scissor. Scissors, yeah. Okay, so there's the 3 button. We're gonna need one more for the reset. So we'll move that over here and then just type in here restart. Okay, it's also important to name these buttons, or well, pretty much all of them. So let's go and change the names for them before we go. So it's just say BTN rock, BTN paper, BTN scissors. Then we're gonna rename this one as well. It's usually a good practice to name all of the components, so this way we can, whenever we program it, we can easily come back and find them. We also need to add a title to this one so it looks better. So say Right, so we're almost ready. We need 2 picture boxes. Yeah. I'm just going to control and drag that over as well. So this one is going to be the pick player. I'm just changing the name of this one, and then this one's going to be a pick CPU. Okay. Okay, so if I move them slightly over so it doesn't look. So we need a couple of we're gonna need quite a few labels, so it's best to start with. Right, so this one's gonna be the player name, the CPU name. This one will keep the score, time, and then the rounds. Okay, so let's start changing them. So these ones here, they just basically show where the player is and where the CPU is. Okay. Right, so we don't need to change anything there, but these ones here, we're going to make them slightly bigger. So I'm just holding shift and then I'm clicking on the labels to select them all. If I go and inside the properties window, I'll find the font, bold 14. I think that's a good number. I'm also going to give them a text align. I'm going to align it to the center of it. So yeah, so whenever they changes, it changes from the center. So this one is going to say player 0 and then a dash sign there, and then say CPU 0, the space. Okay, there we go. And this one, oh. Okay, so what I did there, I double clicked on the component. So whenever you double click on a component, it automatically adds like a click event to it, so it thinks you want a click event to be added to it. So what I did there, if I double click on it, it adds label 4.click, so I can just say Control Z, and then what it'll do is it'll tell us that, you know, do you want to undo this operation, because it will, you know, result in some loss of work. So just click yes, because there's quite a few things that goes in the background. So that's also another thing. So as you can see, I've lost some of the progress that I've made here. Okay, so let's go and do those again. It's always a good idea to make sure that you don't accidentally double click on stuff, because you can lose some of the work. Right, so let's go and change that again. So here, go to player 0 dash CPU 0. Okay, so moved over here. This one we're going to change that to 5. That's the countdown from 5 seconds, so you have 5 seconds every so rounds 3. I'll just say rounds 3. Okay, so and then that would count down the round from where we are. Okay, so I think we're pretty much ready. If you want the buttons, if the buttons were slightly bigger, that would probably look better. Let's select one of them. Oh, that's too big. Okay. Right then, so we've got the buttons, or rename them, rename the picture boxes. We're going to rename some of these labels now. So this one here is going to be txt score. This one is txt countdown, and then let's just say txt rounds on this one. Okay. Okay. So it's time to import the pictures in. So if I right click on the picture box, click on choose image. Now make sure you import them into the project resource file. So if I click on import now, I just have to go to the downloads, and then rock paper scissors folder. So that's what happens when you extract it. If you haven't extracted it, then the zip file won't show up here. So once you have extracted, then you can see the pictures. So select all of them, click open, select UQ. Now obviously it's out of bounds slightly, so we just have to stretch it. So click on the little triangle, go to stretch image, do the same for the other one, QQ again, stretch image. Right, Okay, so the GUI is ready at the moment. Now we have one last thing to add, because to use the countdown we also need a timer. So drag and drop a timer from the toolbox, and let's say name this one countdown timer. The interval is going to be 1 second, so 1000 milliseconds. So you can leave that bit to false. Okay, so now what we're going to do is you can go ahead and double click on each of these buttons, because we need to have a click event to each of them. So if I double click on this one, so it says here rock button click, so that automatically added a click event there. So we can type it in there as well if you want to, but obviously for timing sake it's a lot quicker to just double click and add the events there. So let's just go add that there. Now the 4 events been added for all 4 buttons, and now the countdown timer. So countdown timer event, and then press enter. So right now we have the rock button, paper button, scissors button, restart button, and countdown timer event linked. Okay. So let's go and add the let's go ahead and add the variables for this right now. So first one is int, let's say rounds equals 3. The second one is time per round, so 6. Game over equals false. And then now we're going to use what's called a array. So if you have done the typing game from the tutorials, we have used an array there, and we're going to use the array here now as well. So this is usually a array. Array is the same as a string data type or integer data type, but it can hold multiple values inside of it. So say for example, if I had right now I'm gonna have like 3 to a few, mainly 3 choices inside. So I'm gonna do like rock, paper, and scissor. No capital. Paper and scissor. Right. So I have these 3 choices inside of this. So if I had to make a string for each of them, I would have to make 3 separate strings. So by using an array, I'm not having to do that. So because we need to get this system to randomize the numbers a bit more frequently, to randomize between 3 numbers, you will end up with the same choice over and over again. So one of the ways to beat that is to add more to it. So that way, so if I go back here and say paper, scissor, and then rock, because it's a small game, we can sort of get away with adding a little bit more to it, and then every time it randomly chooses it, it will think each of them as a new entry, although there's only 3 of them in there. Okay, so now we're gonna have to say int random number is equals to 0 for now. Okay, we invoke the random class. Okay, string CPU choice, let's leave it blank for now. Player choice. Oh. Okay, so this is the random class that we're going to use to generate a random number and save it inside of this integer. In return, that's going to be helping us to choose a entry from here. So the CPU choice is going to be saved from here to here, so that way, because both of these are strings, I'll show you how that actually works. The player choice will depend on which button the player clicks on, and these two are for the score. So we need to determine who won the game in the end, so we can sort of figure out whether the player has scored higher than the CPU or the CPU has scored higher than the player. Okay, so if you notice right now, the countdown timer is disabled, so it's not enabled right now. So what we want to do is, when the game is loaded, we want to first, so this is the default constructor for the form. You can tell it by the name, so it says public form 1, there's no void or anything like that. So usually a function or event has a void. So this is a constructor and it's loading all the components for this window. So make sure do not delete this ever if you want to keep the game running. So if we by accident delete this one, then none of the buttons or labels or picture boxes, anything is going to actually work. Okay, so let's go find the countdown timer enabled. Let's change that back to true. So right now it's changed into false. We're going to change it into true. We're going to say player choice in the beginning is going to be none. Okay, and then obviously text countdown dot text is going to be equals to 5. Although we changed it there anyway, it's best to have it hard coded sometimes. So there's less margin for error here. Okay, so now what we want to do is, when the rock button is pressed, we want to add that choice to the player and also change the image on the player pick. Right, so let's say player.image equals dot. So you'll find the rock, if you have imported it, you'll find the rock inside of the resources. So you can see that rock image there as well. All right. So now we're going to say player choice is going to change to rock. Okay, so same thing again. So this one is paper. Then player choice is going to be equals to paper. Okay, and obviously this one is scissor. So one of the things to remember is to always keep an eye on the way we have spelled things. So because we are going to be checking between the choices of the AI and choices of the player, so it's very important that we need to make sure the spelling is correct. Right, so let's leave that one blank for now, and then let's start the app and see what happens. So right now there's nothing else, so I just want to make sure that the pictures are changing. So scissor, paper, rock. Okay, excellent. All right, so far so good. Okay, so now I can go back here and check if the countdown thing works. So time per round is going to be minus equals 1. So we are linking the time per round integer to the countdown timer, so when it does go down, we should be able to see it there. So rounds dot text. Okay, so just do rounds dot text is going to be equal to rounds, then all right. So there's a couple of things to link there, that's fine. Okay, so let's take a look. So you see the timer has now reduced the time per round to actually minus 8, 9, 10. Yeah. So we need to stop the timer when it reaches 0. Okay, so each round will have only 5 seconds to play, so you can make your choices within that 5 seconds. So say time per round is less than 1, which is 0. So if it hits 0, then we can stop the countdown timer to false. So enable equals false. So reset the time per round to 6. Generate a random number. So you can say, for example, random number here is equals to rnd.next. So this is where the array comes in handy. So CPU choice list dot length. Nope. Okay, so we are going to generate a number between 0 and the length of the CPU choice list, right? So because at the moment we have 6, so it's going to generate a number between 0 and 6. Okay, and then once it has done that, then we need to assign the CPU choice to the CPU choice string. So CPU choice equals, and then we need to do the square brackets. So whichever number is generated here, that's the number that we're going to put inside there. So say for example, if that number is 3, then it's going to go here and say 0, 1, 2, 3. So the choice is going to be paper. If the number is 1, it's going to go 0, 1. It's going to be paper again. If the number is 3, sorry, if the number is 2, it's going to go 0, 1, 2. So it's going to be scissor. Okay, so this is where we put multiple of ones, because sometimes when you're generating a random number between too small of a number, you come up with the same number over and over again. Excuse me. Okay, so that's good so far. Now we need to put in a switch statement that's going to change the image for the CPU. Okay, so let's go here and switch. So remember, we are still inside of that if statement here. Okay, so right now we are going to the CPU choice. So this is a string, so we can also check to see if the choice is rock, right? So we're checking to see the rock choice here, right? So the image equals, okay, and then the second one is going to be if the choice is paper. We break that here. Third one is scissor. Okay, and then obviously we have to put a break here as well. Okay, so these are the 3 conditions, because these are the only 3 choices that we mainly have here anyway. So any of these are caught, you will find appropriate one right here, and then it will assign the picture for us inside that. Inside the CPU picture box. Alright, so if we go and start this now, and then we can sort of just let that go to 0 and see what it chooses. Okay, so it chose a scissor as well. So let's start here again, just to see what it chooses now. Okay, so it chose a scissor second time. Okay, it chose a paper this time. Okay, so that seems to be working, because it's a game of chance anyway, so the random number generation actually works in our favor. But if you wanted the CPU to be making smart decisions, you would have to create another function to actually work out how to catch the player inputs and then put it in through there. So we're just going to go over the basics for now. Maybe in the future I'll probably add a smarter CPU to this and see how that works out. so what we need to do now is we are going to add another function. So let's get out of this function here. So that function ends there. So as you can see, I'm just highlighting the curly brackets and then it tells me where that ends. Okay, so I'm just going to put here, say private void check game. Okay, so this function here is going to run to check whether which value wins against which value and what to do when that happens. Okay, right, so let's go over the rules first, right? So say for example if, so say player choice is equals rock, right? And we're also going to say and with a double and sign here, and then say CPU choice is equals paper, right? So obviously paper wins, so CPU score is going to be plus equals 1, so it's going to add 1 to the CPU score. Okay, and then we're going to reduce rounds to minus equals 1, so that's would be 1 round done. And then we're going to show a message box. See, show okay, CPU wins. Okay, all right, so with the if statement we can copy this and then we can simply say here else and then paste that in. Okay, so we can have else if statements right under the if. So if that condition is not met, we're going to go look for another condition. So in this case, okay, if the player choice is scissor, and so close now rock breaks scissor, right? Okay, so the conditions are once again true. So forgot the else here, so I just typed it in there. So let's do another else if statement here. So now we're gonna go and look for the other one. So we got player picks paper, and then of course scissor, right? So we're giving in this function, we're basically planning out any of the possible combinations or outcomes that can come out of this game and how the game is going to respond to that. Okay, so you'll be basically writing down the rules for the game and then letting the player play within those set rules. Okay, so right now obviously got scissor, so scissor cuts paper. Okay, so these are the 3 conditions that the CPU can win. Okay, so now we are going to go and check for the other 3 conditions that where the player can win. Okay, so say for example if the player chooses rock, and then so we're going to change that to player now, change that to player score. Okay, player wins because obviously rock breaks scissor. Okay, we can initially probably copy those ones over as well just to change things, make this easier, don't have to. So right, so the second one we can look at is say paper and rock. So paper and rock, so we can change that to player score, change that to player, so say paper covers rock. Okay, so rock paper so rock. Okay, rock breaks it. Okay, it's the last one here. Okay, and not to forget that player score B as well. Okay, So we got 6 different outcomes that can happen. So in 3 different outcomes, player wins, and 3 different outcomes, the CPU wins. Okay. We also need to tell the player to make a choice if they forget. So if player choice is equals to none, we're not going to reduce any of the rounds or anything like that. So we're just going to say make a choice. Okay. Now if none of these conditions are met, basically, right? So if none of them are different than each other, then we have a situation where it's a draw, right? So we are going to simply say draw and then move on from there. Okay, so let's just go over this once again. So we started off with the if statement that's checking if the player is making a choice of rock, and that's CPU is making the choice of paper. If that is so, then obviously the CPU wins because the paper covers rock, and then we add a point to CPU and reduce it from the round. Then we check if player is choosing scissor, and then CPU's CPU is choosing rock, and then obviously we go rock break scissor, and that's the CPU wins again. And then the last one is if the player chooses paper and the CPU chooses scissor, then obviously the player is showing a message to say CPU wins, scissor cuts paper, right? And we're doing that in reverse for the player. So we're putting the rules in to say, you know, how the game is going to be played and how the player is going to win or lose, or, you know, add a point, or, you know, add a point for the player or add a point for the CPU. Okay. The last two is checking to see if the player hasn't made a choice. Then we simply tell reminding them to make a choice. And then the bottom one is if none of these conditions are met, then basically means player and the CPU have chosen the same cards. So if they have, then we simply just show a draw message and then move on from there. Okay. Okay, so let's just take a look at where to implement this one, and then we can simply check. Okay, so outside of this, the time per round, so I'm just reduce that there. Okay, also save your project as frequently as you can. So any little thing, any little changes that you make, just Control S. Trust me, it doesn't take that long to do this. And I usually get so many complaints about people not saving their work and not being able to find it afterwards and stuff like that. So make sure you save it and you know where your project is saved. Okay, so I'm going to go and make another if statement here and just say if rounds is still greater than 0, so we still got one more round to play, then we're just going to go run not checked, we're going to run the check game function. Right, so I should probably put that inside of that. So I'm going to put that inside of that timer. So I want it only to run once the timer has gone down, otherwise it's going to tick over and over again. Okay. Okay, so and then obviously we're going to put the else in there as well. So inside the else statement, I'm going to have another if statement inside of it. So we can simply check here if player score is greater than CPU score. Okay, CPU score, then we obviously show the message box to say the player has won. Okay, else is going to show the CPU won the game. Okay, so if rounds is still greater than 1, we're going to go through the check game. If rounds is not greater than, so if the round is not greater than 0, so if there's 0 rounds left in the game, we're going to run this. So it's going to happen right after the timer check thing happens. All right, so right here, and then right there, I'm going to say game over. We're going to set that to true. Okay, so this boolean is going to come handy, especially when you know, the game is actually over in that case. So right, so far we got that. Let's go and run that project and see what happens. So let's go make a choice. Okay, so paper wins. Nice. Okay, let's go make a. Alright, so now we made a choice, but obviously the game doesn't play again. You can only play the one round. So okay, you win that one, CPU. I'm gonna come back. I'm coming back. Okay. Alright then, so we need to make a start next level function to obviously start the next level, so we can go and play another round with the CPU. Okay, so let's go here and say private void start next level. Oh, this is next round. Yeah, let's do next round, so it makes more sense. Okay, so first thing I'm going to do in the next round is we're going to check if game over is equals true. So if that is true, then I'm just going to return here. So what this little line is doing is that if the game over is true, let's say this function is ran and then the game over is true, then it's not going to run anything underneath this line. So it's just going to finish that here and then say, okay, sorry, the game is over, you can't play again. Okay, so in here first, let's go and change the score. Let's go and update the score here. So whenever so let's say player space plus player score, we do a plus again. So we're adding integers and strings together to show it on the label. Okay, so space dash space, so got some space in the middle. Set the CPU colon space plus then you've got CPU score. Okay, let's do a semicolon there. So anytime this function is run, it's going to update the score text, which is the one in the middle here. Okay, so we know exactly who's got how much. Right, we reset the player choice back to none. Okay, countdown timer enabled is going to be set to true because we want to play the next round. So you're able to make player score. Suppose we play choice. Okay, and then obviously we reset the picture boxes back to QQ. Right, so player.image equals okay. Alright, so far so good. I think we got this. Alright, CPU, round 2. Alright, let's go. So I'm going to pick rock. Okay, so right now the message box comes up and it says CPU wins again. Alright, so okay, so as you can see, it hasn't, although we got the function in, it hasn't quite changed it. The reason it hasn't changed is because we haven't called the function yet. Right, so inside the check game function, whenever the check game function runs, we want to be able to call that function. So start next round and then leave that there. So it doesn't matter which condition is met, right? We want to make sure that the next round starts after the message box has disappeared. Okay, so if you start now, so let's pick scissors this time. All right, so I've got a draw. So now if I click OK, okay, nice. I've gone back to the question marks again. I can make a choice. Okay, player wins. Rock, break, scissor. Nice. Okay, so I get a nice little point there. So I pick paper this time. Okay, CPU picks paper as well. So I've got a draw. So let's pick rock. Okay, covers, so that's updating nicely. Big scissor. Okay, so I get 2 points, CPU's got 1, last round. Okay, so I won the game. Excellent. So now that I have won the game, if I press on these, I can still change it, but that's not a problem. We need to have a way to play again without going back to Visual Studio and restarting and debugging again, right? So let's, now the last part is to do the restart event. Okay, so in the restart event, we need to reset all of the values back to where they were right in the beginning of the game. Okay, so player score is going to be equal to 0. CPU score will be 0 as well. Okay, rounds, we are going to set it back to 3. Okay, and obviously go txt score. We just copy that from here. Actually, let's copy all of these from the start next round, and then we'll just change it around. Okay, so obviously the none, QQ, that's true, and obviously time is true, and then the last one is going to be game over equals to false, because remember, when we put that line there, it's always going to be checking if the game is over. If the game is not over, then you can, it will do the rest. If it is, then it will always come back here and it will return back to the loop. Okay, so let's go play it again, and then we can check if the restart button is working. So what we've done in the restart button is we set that to player score to 0, CPU score to 0, round to 3, update it, obviously update the labels on the screen, change the player choice to none, restart the timer, reset the picture boxes, and change the boolean game over to false. Okay, so now if I go back here, okay, CPU wins. Alright, that's fine, that's updating. Oh, I didn't make a choice. Okay, draw. Okay, CPU wins again. Oh no, 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 no. Okay. Ooh. This one's cutting very close. What? Perfect game. Alright, let's see, I'll get at least 1. Great. Why not? Okay, so right now the CPU just whitewashed me from the game. That's fine. So now I can, instead of going back to restart, let's see if the restart button works. Cool. So the resets, you reset the score, reset the rounds, reset the timer. Okay, so I can make my comeback from here. All right, let's just take one quick look at the design in this code. So we've got 2 picture boxes, a few labels that are not doing much in here, it's just the names there. You can easily change them to anything that you want. So this one is updating the score, this one's doing the countdown, this one's keeping track of the rounds. The buttons are all named and texts are changed, so we just double clicked on them to add the events. 2 picture boxes, name changed to pick player and pick CPU. We imported the pictures from Moo ICT website, so you can download the pictures right here. Okay, and then of course we go back to, so we added a timer with the 1000 millisecond interval, so it ticks 1 second each time. Inside the code we got the variables. Okay, we have one array that's keeping track of all of, so that's saving all of the choices that the CPU can make. Although there's only 3 choices, we put 6 of them in there, so it randomizes a bit more than just in 3. Okay. So you got the player choice, so we got you got the random number, so this is where the random number is saved, random number generator, CPU choice, player choice, and the integer for score, so for the CPU and the player score. Inside the form1 constructor, we are enabling the timer, so reset the player choice to none, and then show 5 on the text count, right? So these are the button click events. So if you click on the rock button, it shows the rock picture, and then it puts the rock inside the player choice. Same it does for the paper inside the player choice. Same it does for the scissor inside the player choice. All right. In the restart button, we are resetting all of the values back to where it was, and then enabling the timer, and it's changing the game over to false, so we can play again. Inside the countdown timer, we are reducing, so whenever this timer is enabled, it's going to reduce 1 from the time round. Update the countdown timer text label on the screen. Update the rounds label on the screen as well. Now this is the big if statement that kind of controls everything. So all the stuff that we have done is inside of this if statement. So first thing first is disabling the timer, resetting the time per round back to 6, generating a random number between 0 and the length of the array. So that array got 6 inside, so it's going to generate a number between 0 and 6. Whatever number is chosen is going to put that inside the array. So if it's 3, it's going to go 0, 1, 2, 3, and it's going to pick the scissors from the list. Excuse me. And then we have a switch statement that's checking the CPU choice. So if that choice is, let's say, rock, paper, or scissors, we're changing the picture accordingly, right? There's an if statement here that's checking if there's more than 1 round left, then we're going to run the check game function. If there isn't, then we're going to basically show the message to say who won the game, and change the game over boolean to false. Game over to true. Okay, so this is the check game function, that custom function that we made. In this function, we are putting in all the rules for the game. So if the player has rock and the CPU has paper, who wins the game? So in this case, obviously the CPU wins, so paper covers rock. Add 1 to the CPU score and -1 from the rounds. We're doing the same thing over and over again, just to make sure that the game, the computer understands the game and how to respond based on the choices that's going to be made from the CPU and from the player. Okay, so we've done that. We're using the else if statement for all of them. So we come up to here with the CPU win conditions, and then we go into the player win condition here. So in this case, if the player picks rock and the CPU picks scissor, then obviously we can add 1 to the score for the player and show the player wins because rock breaks scissor. Okay, we come all the way down here to after the all the conditions are written. If the player choice is none, then we're just going to simply show a message box to tell the player to make a choice. If none of those other conditions are met, then that means the 2 cards that are picked are exactly the same. So we are going to show the draw message, and then obviously when you click OK, it's just going to go ahead and start the next round. The next round function, first what it does, it checks if the game over is true. So if the game over is set to true here, then what it's going to do is it's just not going to do anything in the function. So it's not going to run the rest of the instruction. It's just going to return the empty function, right? First thing inside, if the game over is not true, so if the game is still going on, it's going to update the text score for the player and for the CPU. It's going to change the player choice to none. It's going to re-enable the countdown timer, and then it's going to reset the picture boxes. All right, so we've done everything in one because this makes it a lot easier for us to sort of understand how to use multiple if statements and switch statements inside of a game and still make it work and still make it do kind of things that we want to do. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this one, and I will see you on the next tutorial. I'm still going to play it.